Hey, welcome back to Gather, Connect, Create. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where week after week, I'm hoping to leave you with interesting conversations, stories, and ways that you can gather or connect or create wherever you find yourself, because that's what our world needs more of. Today on the podcast, I'm very excited to share this conversation with my friend Megan Bollen, who is a certified forest therapy guide. She is certified through the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. So, yes, this is a thing, getting out into nature intentionally, spending focused time and attention really does improve our health psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physiologically. There is science backed research that says that being out in nature may increase our mood and immune function or reduce our levels of stress and anxiety. We might find ourselves much clearer in the ability to focus and maintain attention. And there is research that suggests that all of this happens when we get outside. Although, do we really need research to tell us that being out among the trees, next to rivers, listening to the birds chirp make us feel better? I don't think so. And yet, how often do we take the time to do this? Not often enough. So this is where forest therapy or forest bathing comes in. And I'm excited to say that Megan and I are collaborating on a walk here in Milwaukee next week, which is why I asked her on the podcast today. I'll put links to that in the show notes. And if you're listening to this after May 18th, 2026, you can find more forest baths by heading over to Megan's website, and I will put that in the show notes as well. But I want to just dive straight into this conversation around what is forest therapy? What is a forest walk? And what's different about that than any old walk in the woods? All right, let's dive right in to my conversation with Megan Bollen. Oh, Megan, thank you for joining me on the show. I'm so excited that you agreed to talk with me today. And I talked a little bit about what you do, who you are, what you do, and what we're going to do together next week. But I'm thinking that there might be some listeners who have never heard about forest therapy or forest bathing. And I want to just dive right into this conversation and break it down. You have a quote on your website that says, "The forest is the therapist, the guide opens the door." And I thought, what a beautiful way to describe what might be happening. So, for somebody who's never heard of this term before, forest therapy, forest bathing, how would you describe that in kind of plain language? Break it down for us. And welcome, and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hello. That's a great question. And I feel sometimes like it's easier to answer what it's not. So forest bathing is not an exercise. So sometimes people come thinking we're going to hike or go a really far distance in the woods. That's not what we're doing. Forest bathing, I'd say, is really any intentional time outdoors. And so sometimes people say that they haven't participated in forest bathing. And I'd say you probably have, you just haven't called it forest bathing. It's interchangeable with this term forest therapy, nature therapy. It's really the idea of going into the outdoors with the purpose of some wellness and reciprocity with nature. I'd also say a big piece of that is that you're slowing down. So forest bathing, it's intentional time outside, slowing down with the purpose of well-being.
Because it's so funny. I was out on a walk this morning, and usually when I walk my kids to school, and as soon as I drop them off, I throw my AirPods in so that I can catch up on something and then walk home the rest of the way. But knowing that we were going to have this conversation, I left my AirPods at home, didn't pull my phone out. I just walked, and it was like, wow, the birds are going crazy. The lilacs are coming out. And I was just I was like meta noticing how many things I noticed because I was noticing or because the point was to notice, right? Does
Yeah,
that feel like what forest therapy is? Is that active noticing more?
absolutely. I'd say noticing, that's the number one question we're asking throughout an
Mm.
actual program is what are you noticing?
Mm.
And a lot of it too, I think, is creating a dedicated space
Mm.
for that noticing. And so I've even said, I say it, I think every walk of you don't need a guide to do this. You can do this by yourself. But the benefit of doing it with a guide and with a group of people is it holds you accountable to that space because you've signed up, you've shown up, and we convene together. And so
Mm.
sometimes if you're doing it alone, you might think, all right, that's enough of that. I'm gonna start looking at my phone or put my earpods back in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, together you've got that container and that accountability to just be still.
Yeah. And you are actually a trained what is the training body called and what did that require of you?
There's actually a number of different places you can get trained. I did mine with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guide. That
Mm.
is an international organization. So, as a part of my training, and the reason that I selected the program that I did was they had a lot of in-person components. So we
Mm.
actually were evaluated and needed to get hours doing training. We had to go in person. I think it was 5 days together with a lot of other guides.
Mm.
It felt more intensive to me, but in the way that was meaningful. So
Mm.
I asked myself, who would I feel comfortable being guided with, and what process would they have to take to get to that way, to their journey of guiding. And this program felt really in depth because they did have the academic research side of it, but then they
Mm.
had this whole other sort of personal wellness, spiritual side to it. We had to do a project at the end, really just incorporating like the way of the guide.
Mm.
So I have a very strong affinity for this group. Even now, I can still like message out my cohort. As recently as last weekend, I got together with another guide and we went and did something together. So there's something really beneficial to being a part of a group of people that have gone through this. You
Mm.
don't have to have a certification to do this, of course. Sometimes after people experience maybe a forest therapy program, they kind of question that, like, oh, this seems like it was really easy to do. How do I do this? Or why would I want to get certified? And I think there's a number of reasons why it's beneficial, but
Mm.
one of the biggest pieces for me was I really wanted to be a part of a team and a group that was a part of a movement. I think so much of my work has been siloed just in experiential education. And so to be able to message someone out, hey, I'm going to do a walk for this age group and on this topic, does anyone have any ideas? And
Mm.
everybody kind of helps each other out. So
Mm.
I had a really positive experience with it.
Yeah, yeah. So talk us through then, like a sample walk. I know you just did one down in like Geneva and another one
Mhm.
in Kettle Moraine, maybe recently.
Yeah, Lepin Peak.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what can somebody expect if they show up to a forest bath?
You can expect to be going at a much slower pace than you're
Mm.
used to when you're out in the woods. We do a series of invitations, and these are all optional invitations. Everything is built around sensory engagement. So we'll be using all the senses, and at any point, if something sticks out to you in the woods, for example, maybe like this last weekend, it actually rained on us when we were on our walk.
Mm.
And in the beginning, we were focusing on smell, and we all were picking up this smell of rain. And
Mm.
so we kind of ran with that for a little bit. And maybe for somebody, they just want to stay in that realm of smell. And so, no matter what invitation I give, if you just want to focus on smell, you're welcome to do that. Another key component is sharing with each other.
Mm.
So, on our time together, after I give an invitation, we all reconvene and then we optionally will go around and share what are you noticing? And I
Mm.
find that that's one of the most powerful parts of this is hearing what other people take away. Because, for example, I think there was one time where I gave an invitation of looking for shapes. And a lot of times people think, well, there's no shapes. I can't find any shapes. And you go around and you hear all the different shapes people notice, think, oh, I would have never considered that. So you're learning from each other. And I think that's really beautiful, as well as these common themes that every single time I guide, there's certain things that come up, no matter the group, no matter where we are. And I think that's really special to experience. Whether it's I'm experiencing this tension in myself, I don't know how to be still. That's one. Mm-hmm. Or a lot of times I hear, I had no idea how much I needed this. Sometimes grief comes up for people. And another really common theme is this feeling of being held, as well as connection. Just, wow, the more I look around, the more I'm realizing how connected everything is. That's neat to see.
Which you might not otherwise take the time to feel or sit with or see out there.
Yeah.
What is some of I know there's research, and you alluded to this a little bit in your training, there is science-backed research, right, around the importance of nature. And I feel like that gets said a lot, but glossed over. And is there anything that sticks out to you that you remember from that kind of research that you could share?
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting time for this research. I mean, I have been sort of in this realm of trying to do something like this for a while, at least since 2010. And I would say since COVID in particular, unbelievable how many books have come out, how many studies, and it's almost weekly that I hear of another scientist doing a study on this. So I would just say as a whole, it's a very exciting time and there's a lot out there. I would also say I am not a scientist. And a lot of times I just want to say, just come sit outside with me and you'll experience it. But from our program and some things that I'm specifically reading about and very interested in, there's one term that's called attention restoration theory. And this to me is, maybe the most, I can't say it's the most compelling because it's all very, very compelling. But at a time when our attention is so scattered, and Megan and I, we've recently been talking about this. So the theory is that I think it's soft and hard attention, so direct attention and maybe indirect. And I'm probably not going to be getting all of this accurate, but I like to think of it visually as these tanks that are empty and full at the end of our day, especially if you work in an office that has artificial light, or if you're in a classroom, things like that. And it takes a lot of direct attention to pay attention to a teacher in this environment, right? Or our computers and our screens, it's taking a lot of direct attention. And nature innately has this ability to have soft attention. Like if I'm outside, I'm paying attention, I can see trees, I can hear water, but I'm not really like, I see water, I see the trees. It's just kind of happening. And so attention restoration theory, as I understand it, is that just going outside or having that environment, you're actually refilling your ability to have direct attention or to have to restore your attention. And so in my mind, I see this as, if my kids come home after a long day and maybe they were in the classroom all day for some reason, exploding in anger, things like that, because you have no direct attention ability left. So going outside, even just for a few minutes, they've done these studies. I think his name's Dr. Mark Berman, possibly.
Okay. Did
these studies with people walking through cities for 20 minutes at a time, maybe with earplugs, without earplugs, and testing them on things like, can you say the sequence of numbers? And they're getting progressively harder. And basically people who went outside did significantly better than people who didn't. And you can feel this. I feel this myself. If I'm overstimulated in my house with my kids and I just walk out of the house, sometimes before I even get to the parkway where I'm trying to go, my body's already completely calmed down. I'm like, okay, I've got this. I can go back inside. So yeah, that's called attention restoration theory. And so just by showing up in the woods, even before we start the program together, just standing there together, you're already resetting your ability to have more attention. So it's
Yeah.
like cognitive functioning, all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one I'm really interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. So the people arrive, we slow begin walking slowly, noticing things because you've given us a specific invitation to look for something specific, maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
I imagine people can do it or not do it, and they can just go
Yeah,
off on their
exactly.
own in their own minds if they want to. But if they would like a prompt or an invitation, then you give them that. They gather together and then they share, and then they go off again with another invitation and come back. So it's very flowy and soft and slow.
Yeah.
And then how does it end?
It ends with tea.
Hmm.
So each walk, I select a tea. I try to do it based on where we are and, of course, the season. And then we share it all together and we conclude with, is there anything else that you'd like to share to feel complete? I often end with a poem of some sort and just kind of letting everyone share their experience. But I think tea, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very powerful on its own, and there's something really significant about ending together where you're actually tasting the place where you are.
Mm.
There's a lot of I just say it like magic to being with people and drinking something in the woods. Like
Mm.
that's where I see a lot of people's eyes kind of start twinkling. You've had all this time together. Sometimes it's really edgy for people. The whole experience is a little uncomfortable, but now at the end, there's kind of some, whew, we're done with that. And also looking around, oh, that was really neat.
Mm.
Um, Whenever I can, I try to end in pine trees if possible.
Mm.
I think it feels really playful to just be
Yeah.
surrounded by trees, and especially to kind of make people walk over things and get to the spot.
Yes. Yeah.
And from a science perspective, there's specific trees that emit more of what's called phytoncides. And this is this compound that you breathe it in. And I think all plants have it. You breathe it in, and it does things like reduces your stress, increases your immunity, all of these beautiful, wonderful things. And it's more present in pine trees.
Hmm.
So in my mind, I'm like, this is the ultimate. We're going to end right
Yes.
here, breathing it
Yeah.
in. Yeah,
Yeah. There's something almost, I don't know, that maybe that sparkle comes from the fact that there's something almost childlike and like play and, of
absolutely.
creeping through the forest and then sitting on a little, I know last time you brought those little mats for us to sit on and just sitting in a circle and drinking tea. It's so, yeah, so fun.
Absolutely.
So fun. I'm curious what drew you to forest therapy in the first place. Had you gone on a walk that was cool, or are you just in tune with nature?
I had gone on some cool walks. Yes. I'd never gone on a forest bathing walk though. And
Mm.
I'd actually heard the term, but I had kind of dismissed it as, oh, that sounds kind of boring and slow. um,
Little woo.
yeah, a lot. Yeah. But I came across it after doing my own nature immersion with a different group. I had sort of increasingly been more and more involved in these groups, just using nature for, I'd say, wellness and also spiritual communities, as well as being in outdoor education.
Mm.
And this is sort of where I first heard of it, and I heard of it as nature and forest therapy. So I thought, oh, this is an interesting training. I wonder how you'd use this. And so I went to an informational session. And what I understood was we're training you to work in this movement of wellness using nature and forest therapy. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I want to do, but I don't know how I want to do it yet. So it sort of seemed like the next step for me.
Mm.
I think another piece of that was I really value training. I'm a learner. I like to know how to do things well. I really I've been doing facilitation in the realm of experiential learning for a long time. And I think I've just learned the more tools you can have in your back pocket, the better it goes. So I was very curious of how would they approach training people to do this in different countries and different ways. So that definitely was part of why I did this. As well as at the time I was doing a lot of work with corporate groups. And so I think having a certification was also giving it a little bit more. I've been vetted. Yeah.
I'm legit, I swear.
I'm legit. Yeah. But then, so as I started my training, I think it was maybe one of the first two classes, they started saying forest bathing. And I was like, oh no, I thought this was something different. So I had this kind of resistance to it, thinking that's not what I wanted to do. But the more I learned about forest bathing, the more I realized it's a term and it's interchangeable. I think the term actually comes from the Japanese. Shinrin-yoku is what they call it. And they really have, with their government, figured out how to use forest bathing with office spaces, sort of to counter what they saw as this massive increase in depression and all these negative effects of industrializing Japan. And so now in Japan, they have these beautiful forested trails, and it's a part of the workday of your going out and corporate wellness, right? And so then I think that sort of spread every culture throughout time has this practice. But the term forest bathing, I think, now is used here.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
But there's also this whole like branch of forest bathing. Like in my training, I met these other people too, or there's books about forest bathing while you're kayaking, forest bathing while you're. So in some ways, it's kind of a buzzword in some spaces. Like, aren't we all forest bathing? We're outside. So that's where it's like wanting to know specifically what are we doing out here.
Yeah.
So there's a sequence that I've been trained in, but
well, it seems ultimately it's coming to the forest with intention and attention, right? Like intentionally attentive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything more that you want to say about this experience that I maybe haven't asked, or just something that has come to you maybe in any of your previous experiences?
Yeah. Part of this too is as a guide, I'm learning as I go. And I'm recognizing and looking around and seeing like what is the need in our community and how can I help? And I don't know who's going to show up, but the more people have shown up, I'm really seeing these interesting paths that people are walking and what they're needing and wanting. And I have more and more people waiting after to talk to me. What else can I do? What's the next step in this? There are other levels of this. And I really love and thrive in those areas. And so part of me has been looking at, do I do like part twos, part threes, or how do we go?
Yeah.
But this simple idea of remembering that we are connected to nature and that we have bodies and that they know things and that we have senses, that in itself is so powerful for people. Even if it's just the first invitation, which is often just, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? And then we always say, what do you feel? So just that remembering, like my body does feel things and kind of awakening to that. So having permission to just be out there and kind of explore with your senses.
Yeah. And maybe really even having permission to like exhale, like if you're holding so much in your body all the time, letting this walk and letting this guided experience just invite you to take a breath and take the time for yourself to just be. Which can actually be hard sometimes, to be in our bodies. We fill ourselves with so much distraction and so much movement and so much productivity, and then to be asked to just slow down, that's actually hard sometimes for some people. I can imagine you might get some resistance on some of these walks sometimes.
I really admire the people who are showing up, because it takes so much to do that, as you know, to block off the time. But then I can just see how people are outside of their comfort zones and they're like, but I'm here and I'm going to be here. And that's where the
Yeah.
beauty is in that quote that, we started with of the forest is the therapist and the guide is opening the door. I'm literally containing the space and I'm not doing the rest of the work. That's between you and whatever you're experiencing. And so it's really to do the work, to show up. That's
Mm.
where the beauty happens. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited that we are going to collaborate next week in something that local listeners, anyway, can still sign up for. We've got a few spots left. And we're going to collaborate by Megan leading the walk and me leading some of the writing. And I thought, because you have been in one of my writing circles before, that I might ask you to describe what that process is like so that if there are people listening who are thinking, oh, maybe I'd sign up for something like that, but I'm not a writer or I don't want the writing part of it. I'll take the walk, but not what was that experience of writing for you like?
I think a lot of people in that circle, we all had the same feeling of, oh, we're not ready for this, or we're not writers. I really liked the shared experience of we were all in it together.
Mm-hmm.
And you did a really good job, Megan, of just saying there's no wrong way to do this.
Mm.
Because in my head, I thought, yes, I bet there is a wrong way to do this.
No.
um, but I think one of the most powerful pieces of it for me was the reading it, because sharing what you wrote down sort of made it real. And I really value that. And it gave me a little bit of inspiration and encouragement of, I should be doing this more. I should be writing my thoughts down, kind of stretching that muscle.
Mm. Yeah, very much writing off the cuff, writing stream of consciousness. It's not writing, we're not coming into the forest to write our next chapter of our novels or memoirs. It's just
Yeah.
literally, as my teacher says, kind of unbuckling your jeans and just letting it all hang out. And that's what we do together in the forest in this beautiful setting. So
Mhm.
I'm excited. I'm so excited for this. I think this could be one of many collaborations that we are able to do because I love getting out into the forest as well. We have some incredible spots right in the middle of the city here in Milwaukee. How would people, if they don't live in Milwaukee and are interested in forest bathing or going on a forest walk with a guide, would they go to somewhere to find? Does your site have a listing of all the registered forest therapists around?
Yeah, there are a number of databases. ANFT has a forest bathing guide registry,
Okay.
but I think there's also one called Forest Bathing Finder. But if you just Googled even forest bathing in your city, I imagine there would be something
Okay.
that you could find.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because it does seem to be growing. I feel like I am
yeah,
hearing more about them and to be a part of that movement in this time when I think when you said corporate wellness, and I feel like sometimes in our heads we think, oh, corporate wellness, that's probably when they get a ping pong table and have massage people come to your chair. But
that's right.
what if
Yeah.
what if it was like, no, here, you take an hour and you go out in the forest and you walk? Like
Oh my goodness.
what a mind-blowing concept of how that could change so much right now.
But you can probably even attest to just how much better you work and you function after you've had a few minutes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But it's something I love about this, doing it with, I do it with individuals as well and with
Mm.
groups, but it's really fun. So the fun and playful aspect of doing things with other people, it also, especially if they're your coworkers, you get to see them in these environments where I love that you don't know what's going to happen and something happens and now you're all having fun, you're outside. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
really
And I
mixes up the day.
Yeah. And I love how you said at the beginning, yeah, sure, you could do this by yourself. There's probably ways to take forest baths. You could do that every day, but
Mhm.
that accountability and the playfulness of doing it in community with somebody who's directing you and guiding you of not how to, but what to notice and what to look for. And yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I so enjoyed the walk we did last summer, and I'm really looking forward to the one next week. So I will put links on how people can get in touch with you directly if they want to maybe set up a forest walk for a group of friends or a group of colleagues or coworkers. And I'll also put a link to our forest walk and write that is happening on May 18th. So if you're listening beyond that, just keep an eye on Megan's website over at Juniper Trails, and you can figure out how to work with her or find another walk. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you for chatting with me about this. I think it's, people maybe have heard about it, but maybe don't know exactly what it is. So I hope this was helpful and that people will reach out and find a walk near them.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Megan.
As if you needed a reason to get outside, to look up, to look around, to notice, to pay attention, to listen for the birds. Now you have it. If you're listening from Milwaukee, I hope you'll consider joining us next week on the walk and write that we are doing together, the Forest Walk and Writing Circle, a chance to slow down and be intentional and look around, and then take a few notes, write it down, and share in circle. There's something really powerful about being in circle. She talked about the accountability on these walks, and the same goes for sharing our writing. There's something magical about being authentic and vulnerable with people, sometimes with strangers. So come and write and walk and have tea with us in the forest. I'll put the links in the show notes for how to register. And if you can't make this one, or if you're not in Milwaukee, check out a forest bath near you. It is worth it. We think about self-care sometimes as maybe treating ourselves to a massage or a pedicure or a night out or a nice dinner. But in fact, when was the last time you treated yourself to slowing down and just taking some time to be still? That, my friends, is worth it. All right, I will be back next week with another episode of Gather, Connect, Create. In the meantime, I would love to hear what you're doing in your neck of the woods to gather, connect, and create. People are sending me such fun things that they have been doing or plan to do. I would love to share those out, especially as we enter into summer when the days are longer and there's more opportunity to connect with the people around us because people are coming out of hibernation. So keep sending those emails and voice memos my way so I can share them with you. All right, until next week, be well.